Hello and welcome to Off the Roll. I'm your host, Troy Hirschman. I know it's been a little while since we've had a podcast. The summer is upon us, at least for me in summer break. So things kind of got on the priority list over doing a podcast. But I recorded this a while back with Dr. Brian Hatzel. Dr. Hatzel is the faculty director for the Movement Science House at Grand Valley State University. He's also a professor in the entry-level master's athletic training program there. Brian got his master's from Ball State University in 1999 and was inducted as a Ring of Honor member in 2014. And he's got a great story to tell how he found his way to Ball State and his athletic training journey, which is really kind of unconventional, but he did it his way. And I think that's what's cool to hear about and hear his journey and what he's done and now has his own athletic training tree from athletic training alumni from Grand Valley State. And I think it's awesome to talk to Brian about these things and kind of introduce Brian or Dr. Hatzel to a group of athletic trainers that may not know that his connection to Ball State, even though he proudly lets people know about that. So we go off the roll with Dr. Brian Hatzel. Welcome to Off the Roll. I'm your host, Troy Hirschman. We're here today with Dr. Brian Hatzel, and Dr. Hatzel is a professor of athletic training and exercise science at Grand Valley State University. Was a graduate assistant at Ball State. When did you start, Brian?
I started in 1997.
Yeah, 1997. So about 27 years.
Oh my, is it that long? Holy cow. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, wow. Good math on my part. So
yeah, right. Attaboy.
yeah. So kind of like I've started all these podcasts. I want you to tell your story a little bit. So first of all, where's your hometown at?
So I grew up in a small town just east of Orlando, Florida, it's called Chiliota, Florida. It's basically between Orlando and Daytona Beach.
Okay. So what did you do when you were growing up there? What, in high school, play sports? Did you have an athletic trainer? What kind of how you got acquainted with this?
Yeah, so actually, in 1989, I attended an open house as an incoming freshman at Oviedo High School. And my doc, all of us seem to have a doc, right? Kevin Mathews, my original mentor and still today mentor, had a booth, right, at in the big commons.
Yeah.
And basically, I think he had a booth because he needed some hands to carry some water coolers and help cover some sports. And it was back in the day when supervision really wasn't necessarily a thing, and you could send the student workers out on their own. And pretty much from that day on, he said, "Hey, if you want to show up tomorrow at 8 a.m." And I did, and he was shocked. And then I never didn't show up.
So what did he kind of introduce you to at the high school level, other than just like carrying water and stuff? I mean,
yeah, actually, he had a pretty active student athletic trainer program, right? Student trainer program there. So he taught the course, like many of the high schools do. But in addition to that, we did a lot of in-services. It was really big on teaching us the skills, from the basic anatomy to, taping and strapping techniques, some treatments, how to, splint and respond to emergency situations. And I just thought it was really cool. Like, wow, I could do some pretty cool stuff here that, other people don't know. And got a lot of great experience. I think I was an athletic training student with him for 4 years there, covering all kinds of sports and pretty much everything. Got some great high level, high school teams at the time.
yeah.
So some state championships there and things like that. And when you're at that age, you love the fact that you've got some responsibility and you can make decisions, on your own at that time. And I think it kind of took that and ran with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was really kind of the epitome of my high school experience, was that I didn't have anybody there. And you did have that feeling like, and I think I've talked about this before, but nobody else is really doing this. Like everybody's playing football or basketball or volleyball or something like that, but there's only like a few, if not you, that are doing this. And you do have like a little like, and you have some responsibility that
Mhm.
most people don't have in the capacity of I'm doing this, but I'm doing this, not somebody like telling me what to do on this, even though they're showing you and in servicing you and stuff like that. You're having that responsibility to do those things on your own, and you feel like you're almost like, not that you're a big deal, but you're a little bit bigger deal than just the general Joe Schmo athlete that's out there doing what they do. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. To be able to go out there and the athletes kind of knew who you were, but there's this different kind of respect, right?
yeah.
That, hey, you can help me, and that's pretty cool. And I would love for you to help me. You can, whatever it might be, right? If they've got an ache or a pain, not that we knew back then, but you knew something, and you felt like you're helping folks, and that felt great, and that was kind of a drive for me, and that led to where I am
So so what? At
now.
Yeah. At what point did you kind of figure out like, hey, this could be something that I could do um to earn money, to get a job, to get an education, that type of thing. When did you kind of figure that out?
Yeah, Kevin was great about putting us in really just being a mentor and talking to us, right? About what it takes, what's the profession like, uh, how to pursue it. To our ATAP, Athletic Trainers Association of Florida, it would take me and a group of us opportunities in a pretty big city. So you've got your semi-pro football and baseball teams. He always had connections there that gave us some experiences to really see. And if you look at your traditional athletic training experience now, right, we rotate you through different venues, right, to get experience to see what we want to pursue. I kind of had that in my 4 years in high school, with Kevin. Remember him taking us to CETA, Southeast Athletic Trainers Association meeting in
Yeah.
Tuscaloosa, Alabama. First meeting, at Georgia, doing some great things. Just taking a tour of the athletic training facility, which now we would just scoff at and joke about. But it was a big deal for me. So Kevin put us in the right positions, treated us as colleagues, and really, Kevin put us in some great positions, being outside of Orlando, and athletic training being relatively new, not a whole lot of athletic trainers around the area, and him being an alumni from University of Central Florida, he oftentimes got tapped to say, hey, can you help us cover this, or can you help us cover that?
Yeah.
So he would bring us along, and we got some great experiences. I mean, I remember working with some professional, folks that went on to, play big time NFL or in Major League Baseball, when they were just doing some minor league things around the area, and it just really made me click to say, wow, this is pretty cool. I can do this at a pretty high level.
Yeah. Yeah. That it is, I think it is kind of cool when you have those, even like I can remember even having some of those experiences. Not so much at Ball State, but when I was at Utah and seeing those guys play at the next level, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember those guys when they were like freshmen that were over there sitting the bench somewhere, and you're like, now they're playing big time sports and stuff, and there is a connection there, and I think you feel like you maybe even had a little bit of influence on how that person, when they were not a big time person, or you took care of them or rehabbed them or provided a treatment or something like that to do that. So yeah, that was had to be really, really cool when you're in high school to have those experiences.
Oh, it absolutely was. It absolutely was, and I just can't speak enough, about Kevin Doc. What he did for me, and put me in a position. I was a first generation college student going to college. I knew nothing about college. I didn't have anybody to ask about college.
Yeah.
And he's the one that kind of helped pave the way and say, hey, this, if you want to go to college, this is what you do. And next thing I know, I'm doing a informal site visit with the athletic training staff at the University of Florida for their orange and blue game. And Ross Davis was the head athletic trainer for the football team, and Chris Patrick. Say, hey, you want to do this? Sure, we'll take your hands, we'll take your body. You like to work hard? Yeah, yes, sir. I think so. Okay, well, we'll see you next fall for preseason, and then there you go from that point. So I was really fortunate that he put me in positions to be able to meet the right people and network, and make the open the doors for me. Then next thing I know, I find myself August 1st, what at 1993, 4 days before my 18th birthday, my parents shipping me off to work preseason Florida football camp. And my mom, of course, crying like crazy, and old man too. He'll never admit to it, but the next thing you know, I'm working 2-a-days for the month of August, and learning a ton and sweating my what off, and getting to learn from some I was a freshman, and learning from those fifth year seniors that had been around for a long time, right?
Yeah. So so who was at Florida athletic training wise, student wise, when you were there?
Oh, so students with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see now. Gosh, there's a whole long list of folks. Rob Murphy, who just recently finished up a stint as head athletic trainer at NC State. Kenneth Boyd, he's was football for Texas for a long, long time. Now he's at Baylor, as director of athletic training. We've got a lot in it that moved over to education. Patty McGinn, Patty Tripp now is in charge of the curriculum program at University of Florida. My curricular mentors at the time were Tom Kaminsky, who now is at Delaware, been there for a while. Mary Beth Radusky, still at University of Florida, actually, in orthopedics. Gosh, you could go on and on and on as far as, when I go to a conference, and I know you have the same issue because you and I have been caught talking in the same group before and missing some of our educational sessions. But there's the network, right? That's the unique thing about athletic training. It's the people that you met, people that you meet, that you've worked with before. You have that bond, and it's just a unique bond, and so yeah, it's pretty cool to see all those names and all those folks doing some great things out there.
Yeah. So did you work football all 4 years at Florida? Did you do some different stuff? I know in my research, I Google's such an awesome place that you stumble upon. I think it was the 1995 women's soccer team.
Yes, that's right. That was the first year that we had Florida soccer, women's soccer at the University of Florida in the SEC, actually.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So my first year, so I came in to work football. Spent that whole first year working football, and what that really meant then was I was a rehydration engineer, and I was well practiced at it.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of my claim to fame was that first day I came in as the freshman, the new guy, and we did a taping contest. Right now, when we did, tape an ankle, who could do it the fastest and the cleanest, right?
Yeah.
Well, of course, the freshman's never going to win, right? But I did. I won. And Ross Davis said that, and he says, now what are we going to do? Right. And that was supposed to mean like you got your own locker, and you got your own name tag on the taping table and whatnot. Really what it meant was you're still a freshman. Go on back to the hydro area, and we're going to make sure that tile floor is clean every day.
Yeah. And you're the fastest taper, but we're going to do this.
Yeah, because there's no way that fifth year guy that's been there forever is going to let you at 17 years old take his spot. So you might as well go ahead and get back in the back closet and fix those cows.
So football your freshman year. Did you end up, like I said, working football every year after that? Did you have some other experiences?
So my sophomore year then, so this is back when there were separate training rooms.
Yeah.
There was the men's and there was the women's, right?
Yeah.
And so football. That first year I worked there was the first time that they had allowed a female student to work football. And so then I was the second male to work in the female training room, and I worked
Okay.
track and cross country for that year. And so through that year, then I worked under Jackie Fonte, Lori Duty, Kelly Mochan. Those were my supervisors for that year, working track and cross country under a graduate assistant, Mary McClendon, who is the director of athletic training at Mississippi State.
Okay.
And so, anyway, did that for the year, had a great experience. It was unique because that coach, Tom Jones, the track and cross country coach there for the women's team, said, this is the first time, but I like you, so I'm going to let you travel. And so I got some great travel experience there
Yeah.
across the SEC, and made, again, networking, right? I mean, still to this day, one of my colleagues' husband is somebody I first met at Auburn University in 1992, I think, or something like that, or
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. My math is off. But anyhow, that was my second year. Third year then is when they brought on soccer, and then I got chosen to take on the women's soccer team with a graduate assistant. And then my senior year went back over to football in 1996.
So one of the things that you were involved with prior to coming, I think I'm right in this, and prior to coming to Ball State, is baseball.
Yeah. Yep.
Am I right with that? Yeah. So how does a guy that doesn't work any baseball in college, or just get an interest in baseball?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I love sharing the story with my students in particular, but it'd be cool to share here too. So I had worked 2 years of football, right? High level, Heisman Trophy winner, national championship, Sugar Bowl, defeats FSU 52-20. I just always have to say that for anybody that likes FSU out there. Hope it raises the skin or the hair on the back of their neck. Anyhow, coming off of that, and I looked at myself, and I'll never forget Chris Patrick calling me in the office saying, "Hey, got a spot for you working with the Miami Dolphins. You want it?" And I said, "With all due respect, sir, I don't." And the reason why is because I need to build my own network. I need to move outside of the University of Florida network. I needed to build my own network. And so I looked at, frankly, I was really true with myself and said, you know what? I'm not good with the upper extremity. I've never worked an inning of baseball. I think I should try to find an opportunity in baseball. I had a couple of contacts there at Florida that opened some doors for me with the Orioles, and I took an internship to close out my undergraduate and really liked it. And next thing you knew, I was working baseball and fell in love with baseball. And that led to, baseball at Ball State. And I worked 2 years for the Orioles. I did before my first year with Ball State. And then between my first and second year with Ball State, went back down there. Neil was great enough to let me miss my second year of preseason football to be able to close out my A-ball or rookie ball team down in Sarasota, and came back up, worked football, and then back onto baseball again with Rich Maloney and his team through that 97, 99 timeframe.
Yeah. So you kind of, I mean, it's interesting that your pathway and my pathway were kind of the similar mentalities. Was you understood what you needed to work on and to be better. And I think that's the thing where a lot of, I don't know, I think there are athletic trainers out there as students that have enough wisdom to do that, to look at that perspective of like, I need to do something different to be a better clinician, a better athletic trainer, a better understanding of what's going on. Yours was baseball, mine was gymnastics. I mean, obviously when they told me, hey, you're gonna work football, when I went to Utah, that's what I was supposed to work. And then it switched because there was, I think the guy they're going to have work gymnastics didn't pass his certification exam, and and it was going to be a lot more autonomous with gymnastics. And at first I thought, really? And then I was like, wait a minute here. This is going to be a really unique challenge, because knowing what I knew at Ball State, gymnasts were always hurt no matter what.
Mhm.
And Sean even's the one that told me that, like, you're not going to ever get them better. You're just going to get them through. That's it. That's all you're going to do. And so he goes, that's all I'm doing. That's all you're going to do. Again, it was that unique challenge of understanding how I can make myself a better clinician, how I can make myself a stronger clinician. And sometimes that's painful. Sometimes you feel like the dumbest guy in the room, um, when you're in this experience, but you have to be humble enough to go, I'm going to learn and I'm going to get better and I'm going to learn, I'm going to get better and I'm going to seek out resources to help make me better. It's funny. And I'm saying this on a podcast, but one of my resources at Utah, because the gymnastics coach gave me his number, was Larry Nasser.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. He was my
Mhm.
resource. Now, fortunately,
Right.
he never talked about any of the stuff that he never told me to do
Right.
that stuff. But
Right.
he was one of the guys that I learned a lot from when it came to that. So talk to me a little bit about how you felt in that spot. I mean, you're there, you're in this spot, you're ready to go, and here you are. What
It's
do you feel
humbling.
like?
I'm humbling. I had some great experiences. I had been a student in very high level situations, right?
Yeah.
Working with pretty high profile folks. So you saw what your preceptors went through, as far as the stress and the pressure. And that was similar, if not even more magnified by, then you got your high draft guys, you got your other guys that aren't, and you start opening your eyes a little bit and what that system looks like. But I'll tell you what, I mean, I was humbled from day one. Baseball has a way of doing that. It's just kind of the knack, right? They test you real quick to see if you're gonna have the chops to hang.
Yeah.
And the way I was tested was I was put in the GP room for the old guys, had to get rectals, and I was the guy that I I had to give the doc the finger caught and the loop, and that was it. And I was like, really, this is what I came to
Yeah.
professional baseball to do, is help the doc get rectal exams, and but that was it. It was like, hey, you gonna make it or what?
Yeah.
And then from there you go. And I think the first thing you do, what I learned really quickly was being comfortable, being uncomfortable, frankly, right? And knowing when you need to ask those questions. And in baseball, and I guess I'm sure in other situations too, but certainly in my experience in baseball was, don't ever pretend like you know it if you don't,
Yeah.
right? They use this term big leaguers, right? The guy that acts like they got it all together. And that's the first way out of the clubhouse, to act like you got it and you don't. So you learn to ask questions. You say, hey, listen, I don't know this answer, but I'm going to figure it out for you, and I'm going to learn. And so, I'm a pretty introverted, kind of quiet, shy person, but it forced me to ask questions in uncomfortable situations and admit that I was wrong. Maybe I had done something wrong and I need to learn from it. And mistakes are okay as long as you don't do them multiple times, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I have to ask this question. I mean, any Bull Durham moments in your time?
Plenty, plenty.
You never participated in a rainout? You never?
Oh my gosh, the stories that I have, that some are appropriate and some aren't, but
Oh yeah.
there's certainly stories that you look back and go, holy cow, I can't believe that happened. Holy
Yeah.
cow, I can't believe that was legal. Not necessarily, not necessarily that I was involved with, but what I got to witness, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or otherwise knew about. So it was a great experience. I lived in a Ramada Inn for 18 months working baseball. Um, Never can stay in a Ramada Inn ever again in my life.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience, and and Neil and the team were flexible enough with me to allow me to get that experience, and also then come to Ball State and be able to contribute, and certainly my learning only excelled once being able to learn under those folks.
Yeah. So what, you're done with your time at Florida. You've had this baseball experience and you're looking at grad schools.
Mhm.
What, I mean, you're a Florida guy. I mean, was it again that kind of that decision, like, I'm going to make myself a little more uncomfortable by doing something different or looking at a different school? I mean, what was it that I mean, what other schools were you looking at, and
Yeah.
what made you think about Ball State?
Yeah, all of that, Troy, similar mindset. Chris Patrick, you know, Hall of Famer, head athletic trainer at Florida, was a great mentor. in different ways. Kind of a quiet mentor, hardcore guy. What he was grounded in, which was the student athletes. And his network was wide and far and deep. And I love the man for all that he offered to me and provided to me. But I knew that I needed to make my own name. And so, similar conversation, there were opportunities that he could open the door for me. And he said so, and said, I appreciate that, but I'm going to search for, different opportunity. And that point, my dream job was to be a head D1 football athletic trainer. And I wanted to go somewhere I could get some football, and I loved the baseball at that time too. So I wanted to try to get something to give me a mix of that. There's only a couple places that did that. I casted a pretty big net.
Yeah.
I mean, probably 27, maybe 30 grad programs, and that was back before you had some that were curricular model and some, most of them weren't curricular model for the graduate level degree. And, got a great offer, from the West Coast, working softball at Arizona State, working at Oregon, doing a year of football at Oregon with then a year with Seattle. It was really tempting. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, you name it. I mean, lots of opportunities, but they were with, track or with sports that they weren't football and baseball.
Yeah.
And so a lot of great interviews and a lot of good offers. And I don't know what it was, but I was okay with saying no then. And I'm not so sure I would be now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, it's a week before graduation from Florida. My mom and dad are wondering what I'm doing. And I have to say, I'm not sure. And I had turned down a couple of opportunities. And next thing I know is that, the old light on your hotel room phone was blinking red. And that meant to go down to the front desk because you had a message waiting for you.
Yeah.
And so I went down to the front desk at the Ramada Inn. It was a message from Sean Comer saying, "We're interested in you. We'd like to have you come up." And it was the only place that offered to fly me up and treat me like a real job interview as a grad student. And I said, what? Holy cow! Wait a second. You want me to come up to Muncie? I didn't even know how. I probably pronounced it incorrectly at the time. And sure enough, the next week they flew me up. Sean picked me up in Indianapolis, drove me to I stayed in this hotel. It's right across from the baseball field. It's changed names now, but I stayed in it recently. I was up there for a baseball tournament with my son. Dropped me
Was
off
it
in that
like
hotel.
the Best Western or? Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
Dropped me off there. Next morning, breakfast, the whole deal with the interview. Out to lunch with your team doctor for a graduate student, right?
Yeah.
So, and what that proved to me at that moment was, wait a second, this is a family here. They take care of each other. They're really invested in each other and their student athletes and the people they're bringing in. And I said to myself, and Sean on the ride home said, "Hey, you're our guy. If you want the job, it's yours." And I said, "I don't even need to think about this. I'll be here when you need me."
Wow.
And went home that summer, took the certification exam, and came up for football. Came up a couple weeks early to find an apartment, place to stay, that sort of thing. And that was it.
Yeah. 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 That's I think that's the thing that and you have students now,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you're talking to them about this, like looking for a job and stuff, I think the thing that people get wrapped up in is like, oh, the bigness of the position and stuff, and you should, but deep down where you should be looking at is how people treat people.
Mhm.
And if you find a place where people treat you really really well, but maybe it's not the biggest time thing in the world, it it's gonna you're gonna kind of go through that phase, I think, of like what could have been. But I don't think you're ever going to question where you stand with people or how they make you feel or appreciated or anything for that matter. And I think that's the thing that I don't know. I mean, I haven't had a chance to interact with a whole lot of entry level master students yet. So doesn't mean that I'm not. Oh, I hope I have that opportunity somewhere down the line. But I think the thing is that at least as an undergrad, you do feel like a big deal. And I think Neil and Sean always tried to convey that with their graduate assistants, and Jen when she was there, obviously the same way too with that. And I think that's the thing where, um, that's an important thing to do and continue to do, and hopefully we'll continue on depending on what happens in the future. So,
Sure.
but yeah, that's a great story. That's a
You know,
great
I mean,
story.
it's the first time that I kind of felt heard, right? And really truly valued in my role. And, people weren't just testing me. Does he know this information? It was, what does he really think about this? Right. And so it just felt right. And it was professionally the best decision I've ever made in my life.
I know that I probably talked to Sean shortly. I mean, they got your application. I do remember this, that they got your application. They were going to bring you up. I do remember they were going to bring you up for this interview, and I remember Sean just being so geeked out that somebody like with your experience and background at an SEC school was going to be interested in Ball State, because most of the time the grads were coming from UIndy or another MAC school or something like that, and I think Neil too truly sensed that like this your situation, to have somebody with that, like you said, the big time experience in an undergrad, to come up to Ball State and kind of bring that experience with them, um, was only going to make them a stronger athletic training program, but also provide the students that you were going to supervise kind of an idea of what it really looks like at the next level, if they want to do that or not do that. And I just remember Sean being really super excited. Like, we got this guy from Florida that's doing stuff with the Orioles, and he's really he's going to be really, really good if we could pull this off. And so I don't know if they ever told you that or not, but I remember talking to Sean about that. Yeah.
Well, I know I remember Sean saying something like that, and I'm just like, come on, I'm just some guy that likes to do what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm taking from you guys. So I guess if you think you're getting something out of the deal, I guess we're good.
I don't think it was ever intended for them to get something out of the deal, in as much as, um, I think they could. Again, the thing about Neil and Sean and even Rex, and you weren't around when Rex was there, but they could always sense the people that had some work ethic and common sense. And I think that's the way they felt about you, is that this guy's kind of come in, he's got work ethic, he's got some common sense, and it fits, it's a good fit. And I think you could sense that too when you were on your interview. So
100%, 100%. And we've, here now in my faculty role over the past, gosh, it's been over 20 years now. I've been here at Grand Valley. I don't know how many students we've sent down there, but almost every single time I say, they're going to treat you like family. They're going to take care of you when you got tough times, and a couple of them have had some tough times. Y'all have been there to help them. And it's always been true, 20 years later. So,
yeah. Yeah. So you were the baseball athletic trainer for round one of Rich Maloney.
yes, right. Yep.
Any stories with baseball with that were impactful for you in your time here?
More of the same, really. Having to build a relationship with Rich. We had a relationship, and a lot of folks can't say that.
Yeah.
We didn't always get along. We certainly argued, but that was interesting. I was a graduate assistant with the ability to be able to argue with a head coach.
Yeah.
About decisions. And I'll never forget, and I share this again with my students, one of those that you keep in your back pocket, that we had a student athlete that had come down with an issue of Bell's palsy. He was symptomatic, right? Couldn't blink, drooling, facial, paralysis and whatnot. And, the kid just wanted to be part of baseball. And I remember him talking with Dr. Roush and Neil and Sean, and saying, hey, there's no reason why this kid can't play. We're just going to go ahead and put drops in his eyes and put him in his back pocket between batters. He can throw some drops in there and put some, eye protection on him. And I'll never forget Rich saying, you're being too aggressive. My guy. Like, are you kidding me? And it turned into a little bit of a spat between he and I, saying, how dare you ever doubt that I would put one of my athletes in harm's way to allow him to play? And him saying, you're just being too aggressive. And I love the fact that we could joke about that now and have that conversation with him. I had a lot of autonomy. Neil and Sean just wanted to know what was going on, but having that level of autonomy at that level, and they were very successful in that round, right? You say
Yeah.
round
Oh
one,
yeah.
Rich Maloney, 40-win seasons,
Yeah.
regular season MAC champs, right? Like, first round draft picks, in multiple positions,
Yeah.
over several years. So, I'll never forget too, when it came from Florida, one of my big roles was I was in charge of all road meals, right? And you know what that's like.
Yeah.
I'll never forget John Lowry telling me, he says, "You got $6 per person for breakfast. Make your magic work." Like, that is $6 for each guy in a Division I baseball team to have a good breakfast. And he says, and make sure there's orange juice thrown in there. So I
Yeah.
remember calling Old Country buffets and Shoney restaurants and negotiating breakfast deals at $6 per person. So
Yeah.
that way our guys could have a buffet breakfast going into double headers on the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Baseball is. I was telling my wife this a couple weeks ago that because my daughter was out in California for Business Professionals of America national conference that she had won a chance to go there with the school and stuff, and we were trying to explain to her how to budget like your money, your spending money that you have for meals and stuff. This is how you budget it. And the hotel had free breakfast, and I told my wife, I go, yeah, I remember those days working baseball at St. Joe's where we stayed at Embassy Suites so that we could just load up for breakfast in the morning,
Mhm.
and we'd have like snacks for lunch in between games, and then we'd come back and we'd have like McDonald's or something like that. I mean, because you just had, that's how the budget would allow for baseball to do that. And I said she's going to have to kind of experience the same thing. She's going to have to load up as much as she can on a free breakfast, and then sparingly spend money, because she's in LA. There's
Oh yeah,
she was like, oh my gosh, it cost me $25 for a hamburger. And I go, yeah, that's it. That's California, right?
that's right.
You're gonna have a different perspective on that now. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that those are lessons that you don't teach in class, that you learn in your experience, that is totally out of the realm of athletic training, but a valuable lesson to learn because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, how to eat. I still have it on my bookshelf actually. How to eat healthy, how to eat fast food healthy, or something like that, right? So what are the good choices when you go to Burger King? What are the good choices at McDonald's? I
Right.
remember drafting one up for my athletes saying, when you go, you want to take this serious for recovery, order these things. It's
Yeah.
the lesser of all the evils, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you finish up at Ball State. What's your next step?
Yeah, so Ball State, looking for jobs. Finishing up that second year, finish up my master's thesis. Tom Widener, who you mentioned, anyway, at least I think before we started the podcast, Tom Widener was my academic mentor there. For that year, he needed a teaching assistant for a intro to athletic training laboratory course. And, I said, Tom, if you ever have any opportunities for me to be able to, kind of cut my teeth teaching, I'd love to. He says, yeah, join me in lab. Come on up. So I started teaching, started to really love that. Now, I always taught in the athletic training room, right? That was
Right.
always part of it. Always did in services, whatever. It's just what you do as an athletic trainer. You're a teacher. Really loved it, and looking for jobs. Nothing was really biting. I did get an offer for the Orioles to go back. They were going to promote me up to A ball. So I think I was going to be in Frederick. No, I was going to be in Bluefield, West Virginia. Actually, it was going to be. And so said, you know what, that's cool. I'm gonna go back into baseball, and I'm good to go. And then one night I just said, I'm gonna call my old mentor at Florida and see if they have any, what are they doing with that PhD program he mentioned he wanted to start way back when.
Yeah.
So Tom Kaminsky answered the phone. So Tom, what would you think about if I came back to Florida? I could be your research assistant. And I talked to Chris Patrick about maybe funding the position. I could be an athletic trainer. He says, if you can get Chris Patrick to pay for your stipend, then you can go ahead and you be part of the PhD program. I said, all right. So called Chris Patrick, and I said, CP, I said, this is what I have idea. Tell me what you think. I said, I'd come down there, PhD program, about 3 years. And I don't want to just work in a lab collecting data. I want to work as a clinical athletic trainer. I'm going to keep my hands on folks. I want to be a teacher. What do you think? He goes, well, if you know Chris Patrick's got a gravelly, really deep voice. Well,
Yeah.
Ryan, we want to try to keep our GAs for about 3 years anyway. So why don't you come on down? Okay, that was pretty easy.
Yeah.
Applied to grad school, got accepted barely, but got accepted. The GRE was 10 over the minimum, but it was over the minimum. And then started school there. That first year, put me back with women's soccer
Okay.
because I had already worked women's soccer at Florida.
Right.
So my stipend, my assignment was to oversee women's soccer there, and then start in the PhD program there, which was meant to be 3 years. Spent that first year working again with the same head coach, Becky Burley. Um, and that team, and what was funny is now this is the fifth year of that team, I think, or fourth year of that team. So all the girls that were freshmen and new that first year I worked when soccer first started forever, right? Never
Right.
been at Florida before, had won a national championship the year before.
Oh, wow.
And I come in and, they, off of that, they had since just graduated. And so we had the fifth year girls or whatever. So lots of cool relationships going back to be able to work with a lot of those athletes, that really high level athletes, future
Yeah.
Olympians, some of the best women's soccer players in the world, actually. Second year, then they wanted to go full time staff at soccer. So then I was going to be shifted over to track and oversee track and field at Florida, and then just started doing the numbers and saying, wait a second, I promised my wife, who brought, we came back down to Florida together. I promised
Yeah.
her 3 years and we're going back somewhere else. Realized that if I was overseeing a team of 100 athletes by myself and trying to earn my doctorate, it probably wasn't going to work. So just so happened that softball came open that year. And I approached Chris Patrick about that, and he says, "Yeah, sure, you can go ahead and work softball." And with my baseball experience, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So then the last 2 years, I worked women's softball at Florida while I finished up my research and finished up my curriculum for my PhD program.
Yeah. Wow. Not an easy thing to do while you're working basically as Division One college athlete training assistant and doing research and writing a thesis and everything else that goes along with that. So
Yeah, that is not a lie. Between those hours of 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., was sitting at the dining room table in our apartment. My wife, so supportive. She was in, she played tennis at Ball State. That's
yeah.
another story, maybe for another podcast. But
Yeah.
anyhow, she'd fall asleep on the couch just to give me company
Yeah.
while I was out there typing and doing my work to earn that degree. And you're right, Troy. I mean, you're in the lab at 5 a.m. collecting data for your mentor. Meanwhile, you're managing doctor's appointments and healthcare of your entire team. You're on the road.
Yeah.
Even when you're not on the road, you're still not home. Um, and then doing your own research. And I'll never forget going to my third year of my PhD, saying to my mentor, saying, I need to start rolling on my own research, otherwise I may not graduate. And I promised
Yeah.
my wife 3 years that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I forgot to ask this question before we got started on that. So, who were the graduate assistants that you were with at Ball State?
oh yeah. So it was Vanetta McPherson.
Okay.
She came from South Carolina, so I think she knew Jen from her time down there in South Carolina before Jen came back to Ball State.
Yeah.
Um, and then Erica, who's now Esterby,
Yes.
and she was from Mankato, so I think had a link to Teresa Mackey at the time. Teresa was
the,
also a GA,
the circle. There's a
right?
circle that
It's
goes
it's
around.
the network, right? It's those
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah.
And then it was
You were the outlier, weren't you?
I was I was a total remember, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. But you know what? You made up for it on the back end.
I did, right? Yeah. So I've got my own little network now,
Yeah, you
right?
do. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, yeah, and then Teresa Mackey, who
Yeah.
I still say, between her and Sean and Neil, and of course Tony, right? I mean Tony
Yeah.
Cox, and then Jen um, Bednar or Herod now, right?
Yeah.
Down there. I mean, gosh, I just how fortunate I was to have a GA like Teresa Mackey, to be able to just always pleasant, never got riled,
Right.
always had great advice. I needed it. and she was willing to give it to me. So really enjoyed working with her. And I know that she worked at Ball State for a long time before moving on back up to Minnesota. But so those were, yeah, that was the staff.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we had Brian in the weight room, who was did a lot of work with, and of course we had Wade
Yeah.
in the weight room too. But Brian McGovern was his last name.
Yeah. No, that's cool because that's that. I hope I wanted to make that connection to what was in your time there and stuff. Who were the students that you had working baseball with you?
Yeah, so the first student ever worked for me was Jeff Beer. Jeff
Okay.
Beer now obviously doing wonderful things at Manchester.
Yeah.
Married to my one of my one of my other students, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Uh, so Jen Dial, right?
Yeah.
Love her to death. She was a good one to have there. We had Matt Reedy, Josh Vandervelden.
Yeah.
Um, now you're gonna make me, it's like naming my kids and forgetting one,
No,
right?
you're okay. It's
So a long list of folks that still to this day we connect.
yeah.
And I lean on them, they lean on me, and it's just again, similar to what I shared, a few minutes back, right? As far as that network at Florida and where folks are now, you look at that Ball State network, and those students in the undergraduate program, what they've gone on to do now, really are the face of athletic training.
Yeah.
Um, we got Chris Curlis that came out of Ball State too, came up our way. We've taken a couple of
Right.
Ball State students up our way too, and um, so just great things.
Yeah. Yeah. So 3 years at Florida, you keep your promise. So
Kept my promise.
what's your opportunities after Florida?
Well, so after Florida, so finishing the PhD, the logical thing is to go teach, right?
Yeah.
And so searching for teaching positions. Um, so let's see, what did I do? I had an opportunity to work the Winter Olympics in '02. So did that, came back, finished my research, graduated, looked for a couple jobs. Similarly to how I felt when I made the trip up to Ball State, I had a couple of interviews. Um, and Grand Valley, knew nothing about them. I had overlooked the posting for a couple of weeks, and then Gayle got onto the Chronicle and said, "Grand Valley, that's in Grand Rapids. I've been there before." So I don't know where that is. I'm not going north.
Yeah.
I'm staying south. I don't want to be up anywhere where it's cold. And I said, "Okay, I'll concede. As long as it's close to water, I'll go." So it was Miami, Florida was an opportunity, Wichita State, and then Grand Valley. And one of my buddies ended up taking the job at Miami. There, I knew that we didn't want to move south anyway. Wichita State didn't pan out. Some relationship things there. I was like, it's the middle of this nowhere. I don't want to go there. So
Right.
Grand Valley came. It was like the staff. Been around for a long time. Doug Woods had built this
Yeah.
program from the beginning. Him and JD were close, and really came in thinking, gosh, what a better place to start than here, because you can kind of help contribute to building the program. So at the time, Sherry Bartz was the program director. Doug Woods had been, and then he played that dual role of head athletic trainer and head of a curriculum or curriculum director.
Right.
He then kind of stepped back a little bit and contributed teaching. And so it was Sherry and myself to start that first year with Doug for a few years, and really loved teaching. First and foremost, the focus was being an excellent teacher. Still is at Grand Valley, but I could do, and I was supported to do some research. I was never going to blow the doors off of any manuscripts or any journals out there, and be known for my research work, but I wanted to be known for connecting with students and supporting students to help them accomplish whatever their goals were. And
Yeah.
felt like Grand Valley gave me that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was 2002.
2002, fall of 2002, I left Florida and started that fall, at Grand Valley. Hadn't actually finished my PhD yet. Didn't finish it until that fall while I was teaching up at Grand Valley.
Okay.
And then, been here ever since now. I think starting do the math on that, 23. So 21st year, I think.
20, I was going to say 21 years. Yeah. You're legal to drink now. at
I'm
Grand Valley.
I'm legal to drink now.
Yeah, you're legal to drink now. Yes, exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, you've had you, you you're starting out kind of building this Grand Valley program and kind of where you're at now, especially in kind of navigating this whole entry level master's change and stuff like that. The 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 one thing that I can say about about the program from what I've seen from the students that have come through that program, they're they're very much a reflection of you. Again, hardworking, common sense. Um, are they uh are they would I think they would in their time, the ones that we had at Ball State would would uh would push us as a staff sometimes to answer questions that we needed to brush up on to answer. They made us better athletic trainers in their time at Ball State as graduate assistants. Um, but the one thing that I can say is that we always felt like those students were very much a reflection of what we were trying to do in our program at Ball State. And that was family, connection, have fun, work hard, have some common sense. You're gonna and I think that's the thing we always try to give all of our graduate assistants room to make some mistakes, learn from those mistakes and then grow into athletic trainers and um that's the thing if there's I don't know if you hear that from other schools that you've sent your kids to as graduate assistants or now staff members, whatever. But I know that's what we never had to worry about. If there was a kid coming from Grand Valley, we never had to worry about it. We never had to worry about the students that were coming from there. And we love those. I mean, and like you said, you still keep connections with those students and stuff. Well, we do too. I mean, and goodness sakes, I mean, I just heard it the other day that Lainey Bisbee or whatever her married name now is, I can't remember that, is like running the program in at what is it, UMass Lowell?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, Laney was and I don't take I mean this is not a negative knock, but Laney was the one that we would have to like sit down and like, okay, here's how you need to here's you're doing a great job with this, but you might want to look at it from this perspective. This might work out a little bit better for you if you would look at it from this perspective. But she was awesome. And it's so cool to see how that has translated on at the next level.
Yeah. And I think really, I think it's a function of I loved Ball State so much and what you all brought, right? That family piece, the caring piece, that matters so much. When folks are treated that way, they get so much more invested into what they're doing, and everybody's better because of it. It's better healthcare for your patients. It's better development for your peers. And so I just simply tried to emulate a scenario like what already existed at Ball State. And I'm just one person. We've got a great faculty, right? And Doug Woods always functioned that way. If you've ever met Doug once, I mean, you're his best friend forever.
Yeah.
And just a great mentor. And so he really is to blame, if you will, or to thank for that. Sherry the same, and other colleagues. And so I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
But I will say, I don't doubt any of our graduates against anybody any day.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, one of the things, and I've taken up a lot of your time, a lot of your time tonight, but one of the things I wanted to ask you about is that you co-authored a book called Kinesiology for Dummies.
Yes, sir, I do.
I wish I had that book when I was at Ball State because I felt like a dummy trying to get through kinesiology. I would go to Rafael Bahamonde. I don't know if Rafael was still there when you were there.
Gosh, I remember the name.
Yeah. I would go to his office every period after kinesiology class because he would teach me the trig functions in order to solve the problem. And that's how I got through kinesiology. Other than other movement stuff, origins and insertions and all that stuff, I could do all that. I could not do. I had my highest level of math was a half a semester in geometry in high school. Okay. And he was kind enough to teach me the trig functions so I could solve the problem, take the test, and get the heck out of there. So what comes about in writing kinesiology for dummies?
Yeah, this was right place, right time, really. A colleague of mine at Grand Valley, Steve Glass, got approached and by the dummies group, say, hey, you want to write a book about kines? And he's like, well, I know exercise physiology, but I don't know, functional anatomy or sports psychology or history. And so he brought Rick Albrecht and myself into the project, and it was about a 1.5-year project where we contributed. And we oftentimes joke through that process because you feel pretty dumb sometimes trying to put something together. We said, this is perfect for all of us, kinesiology for dummies by dummies. And, you just trying to put basically what it came from is the years of me teaching that content and going, you know what? It doesn't need to be so hard.
Yeah.
Right. What's the bottom line from a clinician standpoint? What do we need to know in functional anatomy? How are we going to assess motion? How do things fire? How do things work? Right. And put it all make sense. So really just took those notes, put them to chapters, and put together my aspects of the book, and then had two other similar minds that were very humble folks. That really like to, they were great. They were genius at making complex concepts simple.
Yeah.
While it's not going to win any Pulitzer prizes or anything,
right?
Like that, I think it's made a difference in the readership.
Yeah. No, I think the thing is that I'm going to go find it. I'm going to get it just for the sake of I mean, I saw it and I said, I might just want to read this just to have an idea of like how to make things a little more simple, because I'm dealing with high school kids now and trying to, sometimes, unfortunately, I get into this mode where I just talk right over their heads. I know I'm doing it, but it's not for my own ego. It's the only way I know how to explain things, and sometimes you need to figure out a way to make it a little bit more simpler to understand. I know that when I was in Indiana State, there was a guy that came in. We were looking for a different orthotics company, and this kid came in and he had these devices, and they were made out of Birkenstock cork. And I'm like, well, where'd you get these at? And so it turns out they were made out of a PT clinic in Evansville with two guys named Pat Wimpy and Bob Tank. And Bob Tank is actually who taught Pat. And so I went down there for like 3 or 4 days, just to observe and watch and stuff like that. And Pat could do it just like what you talked about. Could take something really complex as a biomechanical analysis and make it so simple that I didn't feel like I needed to get another degree in biomechanics to figure out how to help somebody. And I think that's the thing where is sometimes things are rocket science. It's just what it is. Right. But sometimes things don't need to be rocket science in order to help somebody. And I think that book, like I said, I'm going to get it and read it just for the heck of it, for that. But I think that's the thing about it is that is that if you get drill down to the crux of what we do, it is that we're trying to help people, and we need to figure out some ways to communicate those ways of trying to help somebody in a way that doesn't make it so intimidating or over our heads, or over somebody else's head for that matter, so we can help them. And sometimes that's helping themselves with that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's been great. Hopefully, it makes a little bit of a difference. It was a fun experience for me, but yeah, it comes down to, if you're the smartest person in the room, you built the wrong team. Right?
Yeah.
And so got a good team. And that's what I share with my students. And if patients care, or feel that you care about them, they'll let you try just about anything, right? To try to get them better. And you'll be
Right.
amazed what the results are.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a young lady that's a senior this year that um she comes in every single softball player, basketball player. She comes in every single day with a new problem. Like today, and she comes in like this. She goes, "Can you help me today? Can you help me today? Can you help me today?" So today I just said, "Hey, you know what? I know your shoulder hurts, but I know graduation's almost about a week, 10 days away. And I'm going to tell you right now that your shoulder may be hurting. And I don't know why it hurts. I've looked at it several times. I don't know why it hurts. But I can tell you this, you will survive through graduation. And you will go on, and she's going to go play basketball at IU Southeast or something like that. But I said, you're going to graduate and you're going to be just fine. What is out there behind all this, you don't know, and it's scary, but you're going to be okay. Now, I don't know if that makes your shoulder feel better or not, but I have a sneaky feeling that's probably why your shoulder hurts like right now,
Right.
because you have all this anxiety built up and stuff about the unknown. And the
Mm-hmm.
unknown, I told her, can be exciting if you can look at it from the right perspective. And so,
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
that's the thing where I just laugh at the fact that that there is a component of how we care for people. Like you said, they won't care what you do for them as long as you think as long as you help them think that it's going to help them, and
Mhm.
and that's helping them do that type of thing. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're in a pretty privileged position, right? Or we're in a position where we can make a difference for folks,
yeah.
and it matters. And I think at the end of the day, right, those long hours, the pay, the whatever you want to put in there that can make you frustrated. At the end of the day, those that are loving what they do, it's because they're helping folks, and I think it's a pretty special aspect of our field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. I mean, that we wouldn't be doing any of this if we didn't feel like we were making a difference in that situation. So,
Yeah.
um, just kind of to wrap this up a little bit, one of the questions I ask at the end of this is if you could give any advice to any of your, I mean, you probably do it on a daily basis, or a weekly basis or a monthly basis with your students, but what's your one piece of advice that you give them um, to kind of help them understand this perspective of athletic training and what you're involved with that?
Yeah, I think been doing this long enough, as have you. You've seen generational changes, right? Generational differences. How students and patients are different than you were, right, at that age. And I think even more so now, there's a lot of me perspective. And so I think for me and why I've been able to accomplish some of the things I've been able to accomplish, which is just be a successful professional, really is it, right? I haven't done anything earth shattering, but it's not about me. It's about all of us. In order for me to be successful in what I need to try to accomplish, it's going to take a whole team of people, right? To be there, whether it be in the business office or whether it be in the athletic training room or in the clinic or in a team environment, wherever it may be in your home, right? I can't do it all. It's not about me. It's about all of us. It's all, uh, Todd Yeager, colleague of mine and also mentor here when I got to Grand Valley early. He preached the same thing, right? It's not about me, it's about we. And so, not to sound cliche, but really that's what it is. And the second that you can help students move outside of their own silo, their own frame of thought within their own little world about what is out there and what they can really truly accomplish, they think beyond how it affects me in this moment. Sometimes it's not immediate. Oftentimes it's not. Most of the time it's not immediate benefit that you see or that you're rewarded right there in that moment. But it's a pathway,
Yeah.
right, to accomplish what it is that you want to. So I guess it's not about me. Don't make it about you. It's about all of us. And the hard decisions are oftentimes the right decisions to make. So if something feels difficult to make, it's probably the right one. And so think about it for a minute. The other piece of advice is think before you speak.
Yeah.
Say it to yourself, a time or two before you say it out loud, because
Yeah.
I'm a pretty impulsive guy. And so I've had to learn over time, say it to yourself. You can't say it in front of your friends or, or your kids or your wife. You probably shouldn't say it.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. I mean, and I think that's a great piece of advice. Especially, well, and in this day and age, it's not so much of saying it as you type it in your phone on your social media
Right.
account. Yeah,
Right.
because what you say in front of some one, two people, okay, yeah, that could get out there. But when you hit that send button or that post button, it's out there everywhere and it's there forever. And I think that's the thing that I've done that where I've typed stuff in and then I look at it and I go,
Hmm.
delete, 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 delete,
Yeah,
delete,
right.
delete,
Good at
delete,
that,
delete.
right? Absolutely. I think that's where it comes in, right? And being humble, being kind, all that stuff matters, right?
Yeah.
It just all matters. And so, don't want to, go on, too long of a rant on that sort of a thing. But in the end, don't think too much about yourself. Think about others, uh, and it'll all work out great. And you'll be amazed by how much you're going to benefit by by those little simple rules.
Yeah. Well, Brian, that's awesome. That's awesome advice. And um again, I think that's one of the pieces that again, that's who you are, but that's part of the piece that um that's kind of why you're in the Ring of Honor, is that you amplify, you have those values in that system of a lot of people that are in the Ring of Honor now. And I think that's the thing where I'm very proud of that, to be part of that myself personally, but um just the list of names and people that are in that all kind of amplify those qualities. And it was never really about me. It's always about others and how we impact those people. So that's
Yeah.
great.
Without a
So
doubt, that Ring of Honor is a humbling experience,
yeah,
to be able to put your name next to some of the names that are there. Just some of the lifetime leaders of our field and just great people. And to be next to somebody like a Jim Dickerson, right? And others, out there, of course, you can keep going forever and ever and ever, but some of those names out there, you look at it, wow, okay, that's I still got a lot to prove myself to say that I deserve to be there, right?
yeah, no. I mean, that's I definitely think about that a lot too. So, well, listen, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. It was awesome to have this conversation. And uh again, what I'd like to do in the future with this is that I've kind of done some individual podcasts, but it would be fun to do one with you and Teresa Mackey and Erica and maybe
Yes.
Neil. That was the one thing that I got told when I did the Mark file. You have to listen to the Mark file. If you don't know who Mark is, Mark was the athletic trainer for Chicago Bulls for 10 years, like Michael Jordan's rookie year up until 1990. But I did that with Neil, and somebody told me, he said, you need to have Neil as your guest host more often. so,
Oh, I bet he
so,
was a blast.
oh yeah, that's the thing. And so I need to have, now that Neil's not doing a whole lot more than that, that would be good to do. I need to have Neil a little bit more as a guest host with me, or maybe we just need to do this together, and it could go off the rails pretty quickly, but it would also be very good to have him around. So yeah,
It could. You'd have to have your button ready to go, right? The pause
yeah,
button.
not so much Neil. It's a few others I've had to do that with. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, listen, thanks again for coming on. Stay on here for a little bit longer, and I'll make sure it gets downloaded. But we've gone off the roll with Dr. Brian Hatzel.
Thanks a lot, Troy, for having me. It was a pleasure.
I want to thank Brian for coming on the podcast today. It was great to sit down and talk to him and hear his story. And again, I think it says something to the fact that you got to kind of follow your own arrow a little bit and decide what makes you happy and how you can pursue your career and create your own success in what you do. And your hard work that you do that. And he's a great example of that. And what he's built at Grand Valley is a testament to just a lot of determination and hard work, but reaping the rewards of that hard work. So again, I thank him for telling his story. Please give us some feedback. Our Twitter handle is Off the Roll Pod 1 on Twitter, or Off the Roll Podcast at gmail.com. And let us know what you think. And again, we've got more of these coming, probably a little more few and far between this summer, but we have some really good ones coming up. And I'm working hard on trying to get guests that I think people would be interested in that are connected to Ball State or not. Maybe just somebody I want to talk to in the athletic training profession. So you can always reach out to me on my personal Facebook page as well. And I want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye.